Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Lukman Quadri Adewale from the University of Pretoria. I'm a master's student in political science. I'll be presenting on the paradox of neo-colonial welfarism in the contemporary Nigeria. This presentation outline goes thus: introduction, historical background, theoretical considerations, neo-colonial welfarism in the context of contemporary Nigeria, and conclusion. This presentation is premised on bringing to the fore a small adherence of the post-colonial Nigerian state to a colonial legacy known as colonial welfare, among other things, to date. It is a paradoxical reality that a resource-abundant Nigeria looks to the rest of the world and international regimes for financial and infrastructural aid to fulfill its core domestic needs. Similarly, it is unfathomable and incredible that Nigeria is designated as the poverty capital of the world by the World Bank, despite sitting on vast natural resources. Acknowledging its domestic challenges, bordering on underdevelopment and economic instability, the successive Nigerian governments have sought financial aid from international regimes such as the Paris Club, members of the OECD Development Assistance Committee, Bretton Woods Institution, and recently the Chinese One Belt, One Road. What is colonial welfarism or colonial welfare? It is a system of domination where a hegemonic nation or conqueror responds relatively to its foreign subjects, colonies, economic and social needs. What is neo-colonial welfarism? Neo-colonial welfarism, on the other hand, is a system of domination where an erstwhile colony with sovereignty in the contemporary world relies on any form of assistance from its erstwhile colonial masters or oscillates smugly within the framework or legacies inherited from the imperialist axis. Example of neo-colonial welfarism in the contemporary Africa are aid from the OECD, Paris Club, and also from bilateral sources like the United States and the United Kingdom. Also, I would like to give a brief historical background of colonial welfarism. Outside consideration of historical facts, one might be tempted to attribute the reliance of the contemporary Nigerian states on foreign aid to the 21st century development funding norms. Contrary to this, the work of E.R. Wicker 1958 brought to the fore the carrot and stick approach of the United Kingdom in its colonies. According to this author, as much as the British exploited the flora and fauna of its colonies, it later considered the welfare needs and development of its colonies. Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations and the American War of Independence spurred the sporadic debacle of the crude colonial zero-sum approach, which was a mercantilist approach. Similarly, the activism of Bishop Wilberforce discouraged indulgence in the slave trade and advocated the development of indigenous people in colonies. Professor Hancock attributed the colonial welfare consideration to the activism of the above-mentioned prisoners of conscience, Bishop Wilberforce and Adam Smith. This, in a nutshell, is the origin of colonial welfare or welfare concern in its colonies, which was partly an initiative designed to introduce the global South to the global capitalist economy. Colonial welfare was a paradox in its colonies, but an understandable paradox as its polity and economy were in the hands of the British. Also, we should also put into consideration that, like, during the colonial era, the African society, the African continent, was in its traditional phase. So therefore, colonial welfarism was an initiative designed to usher the African continent into a modern society. This is understanding, this, like I call, this is an understandable paradox, as it was designed to initiate traditional societies into the modern world. Colonial welfarism signaled the discontinuation of mercantilism, as the British acknowledged that colonies should be profitable to indigenous people, and by implication ended the zero-sum policy, which clouded the former colonial approach. Colonial welfarism was battered in the Colonial Development Welfare Acts of 1929. Although the Colonial Development Welfare Act of 1929 was crippled by the cheese-powering disposition exuded by the Colonial Development Office, which deliberately failed to release funds to colonial administrators. Colonial welfarism as concepts gains clarity when explicated from conceptual perspective. From theoretical perspective, rather, both concepts can be well understood from Rostow's 5 stages of development: modernization and dependency theories. The dependency theory and Rostow's 5 stages of development will be considered as a guiding frame in this presentation. Rostow's stages of development. Central to Rostow's postulation is that a society has to pass through 5 stages in its quest for modernization. Let us not forget that both the capitalists, Marxists, and development theorists unanimously recommended that modernizing traditional society will translate to social well-being, although in the context of approach, they largely differ. For instance, capitalists advocate a free market economy where the invisible hand determines demand and supply. The Marxist school of thought advocates egalitarianism, where the notion of private ownership will be, where the notion of private property will be forbidden and a classless society will be achieved. Development theories, on the other hand, modernization theory advocates sourcing solutions to domestic needs from exogenous sources, while dependency theory advocates an endogenous approach to development. So now I will give a short elucidation on Rostow's 5 stages of development. Traditional society. This is where traditional values, indigenous values are very much rigid. So I call this the rigidity of primordial values, followed by the precondition to take off. This is where commercial exploitation of natural resources, reliance on manpower, and exploitation of the exploited natural resources, exploitation of crude oil, cocoa, cotton, and timber. The contemporary Nigerian society can be put in this stage as the country lacks the full capacity to refine its natural resources, such as crude oil, cocoa, cola, and many others. And this is a fact evident in the contemporary Nigeria, in that Nigeria till today still exports its crude oil, exports its cocoa, exports its palm kernel. As a result of this, the Nigerian share in international trades becomes something insufficient and that can satisfy its domestic needs. Also, the takeoff period, consolidation of manufacturing sectors. In Nigeria, we have few manufacturing sectors, but yet these sectors are not really producing what the Nigerian people need. For instance, we import cars, we import petroleum products, we import textiles. And the effect of all of this in the Nigerian economy is that income generated from international trade goes back into buying finished goods. Also, so neo-colonial welfarism in the context of contemporary Nigeria. In the context of contemporary Nigeria, welfarism is an obligation heaped on foreign partners and international regimes by the Nigerian government. For instance, we've seen during the regime of President Buhari and also the regime of the incumbent President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we've seen them all rushing to the international community, always seeking financial aid from monetary institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, and also from bilateral sources as well, such as China, Turkey, India, and the United States. These are a few examples. This is the pretension that was most evident during COVID-19 pandemic phase. The Nigerian states could not meet the needs of its population. They were obliged to source funds from IMF to meet the domestic needs of the people during the COVID-19 pandemic. The consolidated infrastructure was funded with multilateral and bilateral resources, which has left the Nigerian states highly indebted. For instance, the standard gauge railway in Lagos State, Nigeria, was funded with loans from the international community. Similarly, unemployed tutored Nigerian youths now rely on foreign scholarships and jobs. This is evident in the common slang, the Japa, which is Japa syndrome. It's also called brain drain, which means an exodus of Nigerians to the global north for greener pasture. Financial aid from the West and other bilateral partners. Reliance on foreign products as it was during the colonial epoch. Request for reparation for the transatlantic slave trade. Commonwealth privileges include technical support in the context of peace, development, and stability. Neo-colonial welfarism gives us sensation of paternalism. As you can see in this image, you can see the little boy. Let's just say this little boy is Nigeria, and the one with the big hand at the Western axis, and also China, as Nigeria looks towards its big powers for its domestic needs. In conclusion, neo-colonial welfarism has evidently proven the indelibility of colonial legacy as it perforates all aspects of post-colonial African society to date. This is certainly the standpoint of the epic decoloniality school of thought as a revisionist post-colonial assumption. The core colonial welfare legacies are evident in the continued reliance on foreign aid to fund key infrastructural projects such as seaports, speed trains, airports, hospitals, healthcare facility, and roads. Reliance on neo-colonial welfarism from a radical point of view is an act of commission and omission that shows the incapability of the Nigerian as a sovereign state to nurture its sovereignty. The corollaries of such reliance are the dwindling of the naira, the balance of payment deficits, and weakened sovereignty. Central to reliance on neo-colonial welfarism is enduring bad governance and lacuna of patriotism within the top brass. In addition, the absence of transformative leadership is a practice that gives avenue to neo-colonial welfarism in contemporary Nigeria and Africa at large. It is a paradox that a sovereign Nigeria looks to the rest of the world, particularly the West, for certain domestic needs. I'll be drawing the curtain on my presentation now. Thank you.